to the Dream 100 Show, the epicenter of influence, collaboration, and exponential growth. You're about to discover the power of relationships. Dream 100 relationships. And you're one relationship away from a totally different business and life. This is your host, Michael Tasner.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's edition of the Dream 100 Show. Today is going to be the first in a series of content around annual planning. And if I could insert a word, it would be strategic. So strategic and even methodical annual planning. So one of the biggest things that I've seen small business owners do time and time again when it comes to their annual planning is they rush it. They kind of put a bunch of stuff together because they feel like they need an annual plan for the year, and they often want to try and close it out before the year is up. The other mistake I see them make is they have the wrong people in the room or not enough of the right people. You might have an annual planning meeting and have some of your leadership team, but you should have had these other people. A lot of entrepreneurs love to just put their own stuff together on a sheet of paper and then send it out and say, great, here's the plan for next year, and fail to get all the buy-in, but more so fail to get all of the ideas. So today what we're going to talk through is going through methodically looking across the company. And in particular, we're going to look at projects that were deployed this year. And when we do that, we're then going to conduct a little bit of a SWOT analysis and a debrief of that particular project. And we're going to do that, and that's going to take us in a couple of different directions, and I promise you everything will kind of come together. So the first thing that I want you to do is to take out a sheet of paper, or if you want to do this digitally, and start to write down all of the projects that you embarked on this year. And it could be a small little project, could be a gigantic project. And to make your life a little bit easier, I will link a document that's going to help trigger some of the different words for you so that you don't end up leaving anything out. But if you think at the top level, if you think broad strokes, think about things like marketing. Did you redo your website this year? Did you try a new strategy? Did you change email marketing providers or a different agency? Did you try some other traffic sources? What were some of the marketing projects that you embarked on this year? Then you're going to jump over to accounting and finance. Did you change the way you're doing certain things? Did you do some better tax planning? Did you open up another limited liability company and do certain things there? So what happened on the tax, accounting, and finance side? Then from there, we're going to go to systems and operations. If you have a physical business, so where you have an actual physical office outside of your house, did you do any strategic projects there? And then operationally, that could go into one of a million different directions. You could have performance improvement things that were focused on your product or your service. Maybe you implemented some new project management, or you tried a new project management software like ClickUp, or you moved to Agile and the Scrum methodology. Maybe you reduced some expenses, and that might tie into the operating stuff, but then also tie into the accounting and finance side. So operations often can be the biggest basket, and that's the one where often you forget to list things. And then on the final one is team. So what are some things that you did on the culture side, on the hiring, retention, performance bonuses, incentives? Like, what are all the different projects? And once you have this project list, now we're going to start to organize it. And what I like to do is to kind of keep it organized is use something like Excel or Google Sheets and kind of keep it on tabs, because this is going to kind of get bigger very quickly. So let's start at the M, at the marketing, and you're going to go through the different projects that were completed this year. We're not looking at last year. We're not looking at anything for next year. We're looking at what was completed from a marketing project standpoint this year. Now, for context, I really don't want you going so in the weeds where you're listing out like every little task. Like, hey, here are 5,000 things that took 30 minutes. I'm looking for projects, things that they took maybe a week or multiple weeks or even during the course of the year where it was a multi-month project. So let's say that you redid your website, just as a simple example. What you're then going to do is you're going to conduct a SWOT analysis on that project. You're not going to conduct a SWOT analysis just on the website, but the actual project. So what are some of the things that went really well? What are the strengths? So fresh design, it's loading really quickly, visitors are up and are working well. What are the weaknesses? So are there some things that maybe didn't go as well? So you went way over budget, you missed the timeline by 3 months, and you really don't love the navigation. If you go to the next tab, opportunities, are there some things that you talked about during the project? Or are there some things that now looking back at the project that you're like, yeah, we really should have thought about that. So maybe you didn't end up doing one of these fancy AI chatbots on your website. And you're like, yeah, we actually really should have done that. Maybe one of the opportunities is re-looking at the navigation based on data that you have now. And then finally, are there any threats to this project? Is there anything that could offset the gains that you embarked on? Are there any things that could kind of trip you up and really move you back, knock you a couple of pegs down? So for example, maybe the website, while it was fancy, the content was written a little bit too kind of search engine-ish, and you're worried that you might not be in Google's good graces for perpetuity because Google is constantly changing the way they rank websites. Maybe the usability on mobile is good, but it's not as great as it should be, and your usage of mobile is ever growing. So what are some of those things that could be considered potentially a threat, but also then make its way into that opportunity basket as well if you kind of reframe the threat? So you're going to go through and you're going to do that for all the different areas. If I were to jump over to accounting, let's say that you kind of retooled how you classify your cost of goods and you reclassified how you're doing OpEx. Okay, great. So that was a big project. It took a few months and now you've got everything organized. So what are the strengths? You have better data. You now have a better handle of what's actually your cost of goods, and you're realizing that you are way over the number that it should be. What are some of the weaknesses of that particular project? So while we recategorize these things, we found a bunch of things here that didn't really work well. I still don't fully understand this. The team doesn't understand COGS. So while we move the needle, it still is having some challenges. Opportunities. So great, we've got to get our COGS number down. We need to work on expense reduction. And then threats, again, are typically looked at things that could derail the project. And you're going to continue to do this across all the different areas and projects of your business. So we talked about marketing, we talked about accounting, you would do this on the operations side, and then the team side. So maybe you retooled your company culture. So what worked really well on the company culture retool? What are some things that didn't work well? Maybe some things that set you back or some things you didn't expect? What are some opportunities to take that project to the next level? And then are there any threats? Well, maybe new people could come in and not really jive with the new culture that we've created, and they could knock us a few pegs back. So you want to list all that stuff out. And then what I want you to do is to go through those, and I want you to kind of take a couple of steps back and look at what else could correlate back to that project. What else is related to that project that you could consider as a potential project, a potential priority for next year? Now, the reason that I like starting with projects and things that you've done this year is I like to build on your momentum. If you redid your entire website, yes, we could go and find a completely different marketing priority. And so maybe it's doing the Dream 100 strategy, for example. You didn't deploy the Dream 100 strategy, even though Michael has talked about it every single week for months and months and months on end, and has proven that it works. So maybe that needs to go on your list. And it definitely should if it's not. But what I like to do is to actually build off of some of the things that you've already done. So when you look at the website, I really want you to get more and more clarity and spend more and more time around the opportunity tab. I want to see how can we take that momentum and take it to the next level. So you're going to list out a whole bunch of things on that tab that relate to the projects, but then if they start to spur some other ideas. Maybe we should look at launching a couple of other websites in different niches. Maybe we should duplicate our website and try it over here. Maybe we should really retool the mobile version and get some more firsthand data of how they want to use it on mobile. Maybe it's the chat bot. So I take the opportunities and the threats and even a little bit of the weakness side and see what else we could do to take that to the next level. And then I'm going to do that for all the other areas. I move to the accounting, everything with systems and operations, and then team. And what you're left with is 50 to 100 potential ideas of projects and or tasks and or priorities. Now then what I want you to do is to ask your team to go through and do this exact same exercise. Now, the only thing that I want you to give them as a starting point is a list of the projects that you embarked on. I don't want you to give them the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I want you can have the projects listed on there so they're not like, yeah, I can't remember what projects we actually did. They might find and add a few projects that you did that you forgot about or you didn't know, but give them that starting point. But each team member, I want you to give them a blank document that I don't want you to give them a blank document. I want you to give them a document that doesn't have all the answers. It just has the projects. And every team member that's on your leadership team and or people that you deem that they should have a say in the future of the organization. It doesn't have to just be your leadership team. I want you to send this and have them do that exact same exercise. Go through the projects, list out what they think was a strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. Have them go through and list out any other potential projects and ideas. So what ends up happening is you have yours, maybe you have 2 other people that send you it, maybe you have 50 people, 20 people. And you take that and you then compile that into one master document that gets sent out to all of the team in a blind survey. And you allow them in all those 4 areas, marketing, accounting, systems/operations, and team, they can rank out of all those potential projects and priorities their top 5. And the reason I say I want it to be blind is that I don't want people to be able to see if something else has 10 votes already, because that's going to give them some pressure to vote for that particular item. Well, if everyone else said I should vote for that, I want it blindly done. So they all are operating from the same sheet of music by way of projects, but everyone is individually ranking, here's what I believe the top 5 projects we need to embark on in the next year. And what this does then, as we then move throughout this process, is you're not walking into your strategic planning with 0 ideas. You're not walking in saying, let's brainstorm for half a day. You're doing some pre-work. You're doing work where you're able to reflect on the year. What really worked? What really didn't work? What are some projects and some ideas so that as you start to look at and then further prioritize, you've now been able to show the team, here's what everyone voted on. And maybe you're going to get extreme alignment, maybe you're not, but as you will find as we move through this process, the next stage is getting your team aligned. And if you don't have alignment, that is absolutely critical before we continue to move forward. So deploy this exercise as step 1 in your strategic annual planning. It'll save you dozens and dozens of hours. It'll save you a lot of frustration, but it'll also make sure that you aren't missing something. It'll make sure that you're not tunnel vision in a particular project because you've got all the different ideas, and then your team is then voting on what they believe should be the core priorities by way of projects for next year. That is step 1 in the strategic annual planning. Tune in next week. We're going to keep hashing through this process so that you are able to walk into the next year with a flawless plan and be focused on relentless execution and high levels of accountability. Michael Tasner signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'll see you next week.